Vincent is back, and of course, I am here to share my story about my journey out of the Watchtower Society and how I became a follower of Christ. And I am very excited to share my story with as many people as possible. Well, what are we going to talk about today? That's the question we always ask. And today we are going to talk about the wonderful world of Disney. And I just want to say that this particular video is really personal. You know, I had mentioned this that after I left the Watchtower Society, I wrote a lot of things, and much of that I put on social media, on XJW sites. And recently, I started going back to some of these XJW sites, and I rediscovered some of the things that I wrote. I had forgotten I had written these things down and shared them with others. Well, there is something that I rediscovered, and I cannot believe I even forgot that I wrote this. But what's nice, once again, is I wrote these things in real time as it happened. Immediately after it happened, I went home, wrote everything down, and now, of course, I can share what I rediscovered. So let's talk a little bit about Disneyland. I think I mentioned in one of my videos that I was born in Anaheim, California, and that, of course, is the Disneyland capital. So I was raised around Disneyland. Now, I didn't spend a whole lot of my time, my younger years, in California. I actually moved up to Washington State when I was 10 years old. However, my dad's family lives down there, and we would always go there as a family. And of course, that meant going to Disneyland. And then as I got older, I had my own children, and as a family, we would always go to Disneyland like every year, sometimes twice a year. We would go there 3 or 5 days, usually, to Disneyland. So Disneyland has always been kind of part of our lives. And because I was there so often, I would observe the type of people that went to Disneyland. And I've realized there's like four types. Maybe there's more than four types, but those are the four types that I observed. And what kind of people do you find at a place like Disneyland? Well, first of all, probably the best group. Actually, there's two groups that we enjoy at Disneyland. First of all, there's the kids. You bring your kids to Disneyland, and one of the things that you enjoy as a parent is for them to look at this stuff as real. I mean, their imaginations can bring all of this stuff to life. You could try to tell them that it's not real. And, even if they realize, okay, it's not real, as soon as they get on the ride or something, they forget that it's not real. And some kids will even cry when they're on these rides because it feels so real to them. And so those ones, the kids, you have fun with them when you're at a place like Disneyland. Now, there's another group of people. Actually, there's two groups of people that I have observed at Disneyland that annoy me. Now, this next group does annoy me, but the third group I'm going to mention really annoys me. I can't stand them. And you'll see why later in our analogy here. There's another group most of the time it's men. They are those ones that don't want to be at Disneyland. They hate the place. They're just miserable all day long, yet they're there because their kids want to go there. Their wife wants to go there. And so they are there only for them. But you hear them sometimes in the lines, they'll say, first of all, they just look miserable. And then second of all, you might even hear them say, well, you wanted to come to Disneyland and I told you, about the lines and all of this and that. And they really take the fun out of fun. I mean, it's miserable to even see these guys in line. All right, so that's another group. Now, the third group that's really annoying to me, and that is teenagers. What most teenagers don't understand is the purpose of Disneyland. Disneyland was about your imagination. It was about the atmosphere. Someone who really appreciates a place like Disneyland, they will enjoy every aspect of Disneyland. They appreciate every nook and cranny. It's not just about the rides, and it's not about having your body hurled all over, like a place like Six Flags, Magic Mountain and places like that. No, rather it's about atmosphere. And so often teenagers do not appreciate that aspect. If you were to go to some of these kids, you'd say, do you like Disneyland? And they'd say, oh, I love Disneyland, you know. But what you find out is they really just like having their bodies hurled all over. They like to go from one ride to the next. They go from one fast ride to another fast ride. And they've really lost the purpose of what Disneyland was all about. It's not just about rides, and it's not just about fast rides either. All right. And you could never convince those kids that they really don't like Disneyland as much as they think. They just like those rides. All right. So that group of people at Disneyland, they annoy me too. And also too, they're usually loud and they're on their phones and they're not really observant of anything around them. Now, there's another group, in addition to the kids, there's another group of people that are enjoyable to be with. And I fell into this group. A lot of adults do that enjoy the place. They're the ones, of course, that they know it's fake. I mean, they can see the light, you know, how they're trying to cover it up with some artificial leaves, you know. They can see some of the wires and, you know, they totally understand that it's fake. However, people like myself could still have fun there like a kid because we choose not to see those things. We can recapture some of our childhood when going through these rides. We can totally ignore the outside world, everything when we were there. And usually those kind of people are the funnest people to be with at Disneyland. And yes, if you ever go to Disneyland, give me a call. You will enjoy your day. I will show you everything and you will have lots of fun there. All right, so those are the 4 types of people that I observed when I was at Disneyland. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, I think many of you have already figured it out because now we're going to switch gears here. We're going to talk about the wonderful world of Watchtower. Yes, within the Watchtower Society, you find all 4 types of these people here. And they're all probably just as annoying or just as much, just like our analogy here. You have the same feelings about them as you did when you were at Disneyland. Okay, there are people. Well, of course, this is not one of those groups, but like how we mentioned kids, how the kids they think it's real, and we enjoy taking them there, perhaps for that very reason. Now, there are people in the Watchtower Society. They're not enjoyable to be around, but they believe that the Watchtower is real. They believe that it is God's organization. And no matter what happens, it is God's organization and it is the truth. And, I was one of those individuals, of course, that believed it was real. So, is it difficult to wake up such an individual? Well, as we know, it is. It's very difficult to wake up someone who thinks the Watchtower is real, but there is a chance that they will realize it's not real, just like a kid who grows up realizes, okay, this is not real. There is a chance we can wake such people up and they will leave the Watchtower Society. And really, that's the group that we're focusing on, because now we're going to talk about those other 3 groups that are very difficult to get out of the Watchtower Society. Remember how I mentioned that one group, mostly men at Disneyland, they're not happy to be there. Well, isn't that what we see in the Watchtower Society? That's what we call physically in, mentally out. There are a lot of people that fall into that category. What is it going to take to convince them that they need to get out of there, no matter what? That is something you cannot really convince them of. They have to figure that out themselves. A lot of them are in there because of their grandchildren. They don't want to lose their grandchildren. They don't want to lose their family or friends or any of that. And I am so glad I did not fall into that category. I can't fake anything, and I will not destroy my life for the sake of anyone. When I left, I knew I could lose my grandchildren. I knew there was a possibility of losing my kids. I knew I was going to lose my friends. I already knew I was going to lose my mother. Nothing would have stopped me from leaving the Watchtower Society, and part of that is my nature. I just can't live that kind of life at all. But again, who that was my own thinking. See, that's what allowed me to leave the Watchtower Society. So those people that are mentally in or physically in, mentally out in the Watchtower Society, it's very difficult to have them accept what they might lose in the Watchtower. And most of them will stay there for many years because their desire to leave, it has to come from within. There's nothing we can say that can really change that. All right, now we get to my favorite group that I like to talk about in the Watchtower Society. Remember those teenagers? You can't convince them that they really don't like Disneyland for what it was meant to be. They think because they enjoy those particular rides and all of that, they think they enjoy Disneyland, but they really don't. Well, what group falls in that category in the Watchtower Society? And again, this is the most annoying group in the Watchtower. I can't handle even being around these kind of people. And I wish I could give a huge list of names of people that fall into this, and I just can't handle them at all. And many, many elders fall into this category, especially a lot of younger elders, but even older ones. The same thing. Those are those ones who you can't convince them to leave the organization, even though, one, they're not spiritual people at all. And these are those people that, they talk fake about the Bible. Like you might be talking about something in the scriptures, could be morals or anything, and they might say, yeah, we really need to listen to the instructions Jehovah gives us. Yes. A lot of people like that. A lot of elders are like that. You can tell they are not spiritual people whatsoever, but they talk enough about the Bible and it just sounds fake because it's really not in their heart. Also, too, these individuals, they are into perhaps their elder duties. They're not even really loyal to the organization like in their heart. They'll follow through with instructions. They will cut you off if you're disfellowshipped, but they have no real love even for that organization. They're really there because of community, maybe their friends. A lot of them are there, especially a person that's an elder, a younger elder. He may like the idea of being an elder, finally being someone. You can really identify these kind of people because when you talk to them, you can tell they don't know who they are. They have no real identity, and they're trying to find some identity within the Watchtower Society. They want to be viewed as a spiritual person, but they're not spiritual. They want you to view them as someone who really backs up the Watchtower Society, but in their heart, they really don't care about anything. But you could not convince them that they really don't love God and they don't really even love the Watchtower. No, they're pretty much pretty stubborn about remaining in the Watchtower and thinking of themselves as spiritual. Very difficult group to deal with. And like I said, I can mention so many names that fall into that category, both elders and other individuals as well. So very difficult. How are you supposed to wake those people up? Well, you almost can't. Again, their desire to leave the Watchtower has to come from within. Now, we're going to get to a group, and this is the group that really this video is all about because it has to do with my discovery of something that I wrote. And this is the group of people, this is the way I was at Disneyland, who can ignore all of the artificial things within perhaps a ride. I could ignore the outside world when I was there. Yes, I could see the lights. Yes, I could see the wires. I could see the tracks, all of this. Of course, I knew it was fake. I'm an adult. But I could totally ignore that and get lost in the experience. In fact, I feel that places like that are more enjoyable for some adults than what it was when they were kids. And I'm one of those people. So what kind of people fall into this category in the Watchtower Society? Well, I'm just going to be frank with you. My mother. I rediscovered what happened to me, like I said, on social media, on an XJW site. What happened was I believe I was out of the Watchtower Society maybe a year. I'd have to look at the dates again. But I decided to go back to see my mom. I wasn't disfellowshipped, although she knew I had gone the direction of apostasy. Because, in fact, I'll mention this before I go on to what happened there at her apartment. Uh, when I first left the Watchtower Society, I was so shaken, and I wanted to call my mom just for comfort. I wanted to get some things off my mind. So I called her up and I started talking about some of these lies I found. And I wasn't angry. I was like, hey, mom, this is what I found. I can't believe it. And, if I remember right, she said, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening here? Because obviously she heard something was happening, probably from my ex. I told her about it. I'm not really sure. But that's when I started talking about these things to her. And then she said, and she stated it just like this. I mean, it was like out of a horror film. She says, I don't even know you. And she hung up on me. Well, a long time had passed, and I finally went to her home because I wanted to tell her, like, where has my life gone? What am I doing now? And I thought maybe I could wake her up. Well, what happened there? Well, for the first half hour, everything was fine. We were trying to talk about things, what was happening with her, that's pretty much all we talked about. But then I had to get into the Watchtower Society. I began to talk about the overlapping generations. And I was trying to tell her, look, mom, they are making this stuff up. And that's when she became visibly upset. And she said, oh, you need to listen to this video here. You need to watch this video. It's about the generations, and, it explains it all, this overlapping generations with the generation of Joseph and all this. And I'm like, mom, you know that that's not what it means. I said, they are making this stuff up because they need time. I said, they're living on borrowed time. The generation of 1914 is dead. And that was the statement where my mom became visibly disturbed. She said, no, they're not dead. You're not dead. And I said, mom, they are dead. And the Watchtower Society is shrinking right now. People are leaving the organization. People are not, there is zero growth. And that, of course, is when she started talking about, like, well, who's preaching the kingdom? Who uses Jehovah's name and all of this? And I mean, she was in panic mode. She wasn't talking from a clear mind. It was absolute panic there. And I said, mom, look, and I'm going to talk about this later. I actually had been attending a biblical Unitarian church, which pretty much teaches what Jehovah's Witnesses believe. And that's something that a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses don't know about. And I'm going to talk more about that place and why I'm not there today. But I said, mom, look, there are other religions that teach God's name is Jehovah. They use the name. I said, there are religions that talk about the kingdom. They know the kingdom is God's government. And I told her about this, biblical Unitarian group. And she's like, oh, some apostate made that religion. And I said, mom, that religion has been around long before Jehovah's Witnesses, long before. I said, no. I said, what we were taught in the Watchtower Society about being the only ones that use God's name and, the kingdom and all of this, I said, that is not true. And I said, you are under mind control. And somewhere in there, I had mentioned also to the Watchtower Society hiding pedophilia. But at some point, when I told her she was on mind control, or mind control has been has taken her over, this is when she said something that really scared me. She said, maybe I like mind control. I am where people love me. Maybe mind control is what I choose. And she went off to the bathroom and shut the door. She was pretty much hyperventilating. I mean, the panic. that was in her eyes was just, I couldn't believe just how scared she looked. Well, that's when I started thinking about something. First, what are the chances of getting her out of the Watchtower Society? I mean, is there a mind control that allows you to accept mind control? I mean, is there a mind control that allows you to consciously accept mind control, like she is saying? I mean, is she awake or is she under mind control to accept mind control? It's very complex, I know, but this type of individual, that's why I don't give her much hope in leaving the Watchtower Society. It would take an act of God to get her out. And it made me start thinking about these kind of people. And I'm just going to be frank. These kind of people are very selfish. Obviously, they put their own pleasures, their own mental, emotional pleasures ahead of their own family. They are willing to throw their whole family away because they enjoy the fantasy of the Watchtower Society. And just like I explained, when I was at Disneyland, what's it going to convince a person like me to never go back to Disneyland? Well, as we know today, Disneyland is involved in many things now that they should not be. Take like drag queen shows, okay? So a lot of people have boycotted Disney because of these things. They will no longer go to those theme parks. But think about it. I mean, that is a huge thing. It would take something huge like that to move a person not to go back to Disneyland. Well, that's the way it is with the Watchtower Society. What's it going to take for my mom? It's going to take something that's going to hit her in the face like a brick in order for her to leave. She's going to have to see something that just overrides that type of mind control. And so these people, the way I'm looking at it is that they are selfish. And it's not just that they're selfish as far as they'd throw their family away for the sake of their own fantasies, but they also will throw Christ away as well. I mean, to say that, that means they don't want to know the truth about Christ Jesus. They would rather stay in the Watchtower Society. And personally, I don't understand that, because just give Christ a chance and you're going to be able to fill that void after you leave the Watchtower Society. Now, I had a long journey out of the Watchtower, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I mean, what if she were to leave the Watchtower Society and people like myself or my son, we could share wonderful truths with her. But that's pretty much why I made this video. And it really explains why I give very little hope for a person like my mother. But also, too, it made me think about Jehovah's Witnesses as a whole. As I mentioned, in this case, yes, I believe that way of thinking is very selfish. They're only thinking, again, of their own fantasies. But I was thinking of how that's really true of Jehovah's Witnesses as a whole. And so in the next video, I want to talk about my own feelings that I had in the Watchtower. I realize now, when I look back at the Watchtower, you know how I say I love people? I love people in the Watchtower. Yes, I did love people on a spiritual level. But on another level, I did not have the love that I should have had for people. I did not have Christ's view of people. And so in our next video, I think we're going to talk about time, love, and Jehovah's Witnesses. And I have a little story that really affected me when I was in the Watchtower Society. I want to share that story, and I want to talk about this subject and, how I too did not act like Christ when it came to showing love to people in the congregation and even people on the outside as well. Well, we're going to end the video here, but make sure you like, subscribe, and share these videos, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.